This is a story about how two little letters caused somebody to lose their license and their practice all in one swoop and pay a fine of $20,000 to date, and probably some more as well. I'm Scott Rattigan, the founder of Functional Lawyer, and my job is to prevent any of this from happening to you. So I recommend you pull up a chair, get your popcorn out, and watch the rest of this video because it's an interesting saga, but one that could easily have been avoided. So let's jump right into it. This is a case out of California where a nurse practitioner recently at the end of 2022 signed a settlement that she agreed to pay up almost $20,000 and remove most mentions of herself on the internet and remove her own website. So how do we get to this point, and what can you do to avoid it as well? So the woman, Sarah Ernie, it was the subject of a civil complaint from the district attorney's office in San Luis Obispo, California, which is really fun to say, but really scary if you yourself got a complaint from a process server that said the people of the state of blank against your name, right? So ultimately the complaint was about referring to herself as doctor. And it gets a little complicated from there, and depending on what side of the fence you sit on, you're certainly entitled to all of your opinions, but opinions don't really trump the rules of law that we have to play by. So as I tell my son's baseball team or any of the coaching teams that I'm a part of, it doesn't help if you decry the fact that the rules exist. You just have to figure out how to play by the rules and then still win the game anyways. So let's jump right into kind of the more sordid details that are getting splashed all out there, but I'll try to come to it with a more of a level-headed reasoning, and then hoping you avoid the same fate as well. Now, if you're a medical doctor or a DO, or another person that may be a collaborator or a supervisor, I encourage you to listen as well, because the collaborator in this instance has had their reputation marred all over the internet as well. So this is a case of a woman named Sarah Ernie, a nurse practitioner who happened to practice functional medicine. And in 2018 or thereabouts, it's unclear, she earned her doctorate of nursing practice from Vanderbilt University. Certainly an achievement to celebrate and be proud of. No questions about it, right? The problem became when, after that, she started referring to herself as Dr. Sarah or Dr. Sarah Ernie, both to her patients and on her website and on all of her social media posts. And it's just not allowed. Now, I actually have spent a lot of time researching this. I've seen some opinions all over the internet from what you might think are reputable sources, but this is a good rule in any state, right? It's really more about transparency. So the long and the short of it is that there was a complaint, they came to investigate, and it turned out that they didn't like it. She was indeed referring to herself as Dr. Sarah or Dr. Sarah Ernie or Dr. Ernie without clarifying that she was a DNP and not MD or DO. So ultimately, she was found to have violated 4 counts of the California Business and Professions Code, and in my opinion, got off with a light slap on the wrist there, which again was the fine of almost $20,000. And she also was enjoined an injunction against her from calling herself Dr. Sarah, and also she has to remove that from her website, from all her social media, and then actually go and do Google searches every once in a while and ask third-party websites that list, medical providers to remove any references to her as Dr. Dr. Sarah. I tend to agree with the result there because it's misleading to the public. And in fact, the district attorney's complaint even put a footnote in that said that a study from 2020 found that 40% of the population believes that DNPs are medical doctors, and 19% of the population think that NPs are doctors as well. So there's a lot of confusion out there, and ultimately in this instance, the DA's office is a good warning shot, a good signal to everybody else that hey, let's just be transparent about what we are, who we are, be proud of your accomplishments for sure, and all the degrees and certifications you've earned, but don't confuse people into thinking that you're something that you're not. And that's kind of the crux of it at the end of the day. So I don't think her saga is over. I say she got off a little bit light because it is a criminal offense and they only came after her for civil penalties there. So she got off light on the criminal side of things. And this is important, and I cover it in my book too, the book called The Practice of Telemedicine. A lot of it was just holding herself out as a doctor or representing herself as a doctor, right? And so I went and I viewed a lot of her old social media posts, and some of them are still alive today, where it's just Dr. period Sarah Ernie, and with nothing else behind it. So most reasonable people, which is the standard we use in the law, would think that that is a medical doctor when she's offering medical services and selling medical supplies or things, medical treatments in her office, right? And so I actually had somebody come to me close to a year ago who was also a fellow DNP and was asking if she could use the word doctor, and I told her not to. I mean, in this context, when you're giving medical services and treatments, it's just not appropriate to do it. If you are teaching, or you're an adjunct professor at a university, and maybe you're not even in practice, sure, call yourself Dr. Sarah, or if you've earned a PhD in something, you're not going to say, you're not going to have a website that has a white coat and a stethoscope and say, hey, I'm Dr. Scott Rattigan, and not say PhD of history or whatever it is, right? So that's the main difference here when people kind of get all upset and are like, well, nurse practitioners are doing great work. I agree, they are, and they're needed, and it's great. And I like nurse practitioners, and I think they are a necessary part of where medicine is going in the future. But this, I think, was a case of protecting confusion among patients and the general population as well. And that's to take nothing away from NPs who have earned their doctorate degree. Congratulations. But just be proud of the training and experience you have. And so represent yourself as a nurse practitioner. You can say, I even went and got additional training and got a doctorate of nursing practice at Vanderbilt, which is a good institution, right? But calling yourself doctor is a big no-no without, one, just doing it in general. And if you are going to do it, clarify for sure that you're DNP in this instance, or whatever it is, whatever doctorate degree that you got. If it were me, the safest would be not to call yourself doctor at the beginning and just say, I'm Scott Rattigan, NP, also DNP. But super easy to avoid kind of misleading the public. And ultimately, that's kind of where the case hinges on. So the saga is not over. In November, she agreed to pay that settlement. It is clear that the Nursing Board of California is attempting to take her license away. And so based on the best information I have at this time in January of 2023, there's a hearing set for April on that issue as well. And then it seems clear that the medical board is also going to take some sort of action as well. So the takeaways here are: be transparent about who you are, what your training is, be proud of it. Do what you're able to do, stay within the scope of your license. There's no allegations that she wasn't, but just as general advice, stay within the scope of your license and within the standard of care that you've got. And then, just be transparent about anything to your patients. And ultimately, that's the best course for most of these things, that you can avoid trouble by just being transparent. I feel for her and the patients, but I also tend to want to reserve that word doctor, both in California and in most states, for people that are by law allowed to use that term. So hopefully we'll get nobody else that has watched this video will make the same mistake. If you have friends you need to share this with, or you're worried that they're maybe representing themselves to be something that they're not, or that even if they are in like fine print representing, like saying that, hey, I'm just a doctor or nurse practitioner, Not that she did that either, but if you're concerned that that person's patients or the general public might think that they're something that they're not actually, then hopefully you can share this video or this post with them as well. So if you have any questions about what to call yourself or how to represent yourself accurately, you can always reach out to me at Functional Lawyer. You can grab a copy of my most recent book, The Practice of Telemedicine. And I hope that you will share and like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. And we'll see you guys next time.